So I just bought a new Capo. I don't need a new Capo, but I bought one. It's the Thalia Capo. I bought it because it just looks really amazing. It looks very beautiful. There's a lot of craftsmanship that went into it. I don't need a new Capo. I have some of the standard Capos that you're familiar with. Here's the Dario Capo. I don't even know what this make is. These are standard fare. And then I have the G7 Capo, and this guy I think is the best one that I've ever had. It wasn't cheap, but what's cool about it is it's designed in such a way that seems to limit how much the capo will affect the tuning, and that can be frustrating if you're trying to work quickly with capos in a live set. That's why I love the G7, because what I found is the tuning is pretty good before you put it on. It stays largely the same. So if I have such a great capo, why do I need a new capo? Well, the reason is this looks really beautiful, as I mentioned, and it definitely comes in a pretty cool box. It's sort of packaged like an iPhone, really sleek packaging. Pushing the outside in, it opens up the inside. So that's how easy it is to take and replace. It's pretty fast. But what I like most about it, and the reason I bought it, is because of the inlay. It's inlaid with abalone shell, and that's kind of the whole shtick really of these capos. The marketing material says that they work exceptionally well in retaining tuning and making sure that you don't have to retune the guitar after you apply. They have a different method of doing it than the G7, but really what drew me to it is just the beautiful craftsmanship, because it's kind of unique and beautiful. And they make them with wood and mother of pearl and a bunch of other really cool materials. I don't know if I bring this to a gig, but for playing at home, it's just definitely beautiful for the acoustic guitar especially. The method by which they say that they don't affect the tuning is they've a range of custom inserts that you can take out really easily, and each one of these is kind of designed for a specific type of guitar. A little skeptical of that, so I do want to test it out and see, does it really retain tuning as well as the G7? Even if it doesn't and you have to retune a little bit, I just think how beautiful it is makes it pretty special. In their package they've included what looks like 13 different inserts for different types of guitars. So there's high tension rubber and standard tension rubber, and there's a user guide that comes with each of these. So I've never really had a user guide for a Capo before, but the point here is, depending on the construction of the neck, they've developed a different insert for different types of guitar, and it comes with its own, as I said, the instruction booklet, and the instruction lists off all these different guitars that it will accommodate. So it has a range of fretboard radiuses, 7.25 inch, 9.5 inch, 10 inch, 12 inch, 15 inch, 16 inch, and no radius, which is for classical guitars. And it lists off for each radius what you can actually expect this to fit. So it goes down by make: Alvarez, Breedlove, classical guitar, D'Angelico, Dean, Eastman, Epiphone, Fender, Fender Modern, Fender Vintage, G&L, Gibson, Godin, Gretsch, Guild, Ibanez, Artcore, Ibanez or G&S series, Jackson, Jasmine, Larrivee, Martin, Ovation, Steel String, Ovation, Nylon String, PRS, Rogue, Siegel, Takamine, Taylor, T5Z, Voyage, Warmoth, Washburn, and Yamaha. So the fact that they actually have a key to which make, and in some cases type or subtype of guitar is best for each of the different inlays would seem to suggest that they've done a fair bit of research to figure that out, and they've designed these pieces specifically for each guitar type. So that's a little bit more than maybe you'd be inclined to do. Each one is numbered as a barely discernible number inlaid in there. So the reason I like the G7 is because no matter what you do with it, the tuning's going to be pretty consistent, and it's going to stay fairly in the pocket. So when you're playing a gig and the lights are low and you're limited time and you can't be checking a bunch of stuff, you can rely on this. It's dependable, it's reliable. When you're at home and you're practicing, you're playing, and you don't want to sit around changing a bunch of stuff out. Likewise, the fact that this markets itself as a capo that will retain the tuning, that's cool. But there's a little more effort involved, because you've got to take out all of your inserts, which they all look the same, and then check the number on the back and check it against a key to see which. And obviously, the first few times you do this, you're going to know which key maybe suits the guitar mix that you've got, so you're going to have that figured out. But you're still going to have to look and see which of the inlays is which. So it just seems like an awful lot of effort to go to make sure you've got the right insert in there. The question is, how well do they work? So I want to test that out and see if they really do work well. But like I talked about, the reason I bought this is because it looks so beautiful. And you should check out the website and look at some of the other options that are on there, because it's tempting to want to buy a couple more of these. They all look just so special and so beautiful. While it works pretty well, it's a level of effort beyond maybe what you want from something as straightforward as capo that you put on and off your guitar. It's an interesting approach. Do you want to have a capo and a bunch of inserts and an instruction manual, or do you just want to have a capo? So not only does it come with its own instruction booklet, but there's also a quick start guide as well, and it's a little confusing because the quick start guide refers to two different types of inserts, rubber versus sliding, but the little booklets that come with the actual insert packets say standard tension rubber and high tension rubber. Looking at that a little bit and reading online, and I read a really good review that somebody wrote, and I want to credit them. The website's called seriousgasgas.com, and they wrote a really great review, and I looked at that and helped me understand a bit more that the high tension are a little taller than the low tension. So that kind of makes more sense, and if you compare them, you can kind of see that the high tension are a little thicker. They have a couple extra millimeters. There's a different type of rubber there too. So there is something in the quick start guide that says the rubber is softer and will bind the strings to the fret, keeping them from moving beneath the capo. So it's kind of acting like an extra nut, whereas the sliding is a harder and slippier rubber, so the strings can actually bend beneath the capo. So it's acting as if you're kind of barring it with an extra finger, playing a bar chord, as opposed to a nut that's clamping it down. The rubber, which clamps it and holds it in place like an extra nut, is ideal for 12 strings and baritone, and similar to what other capos do, but the sliding is easier to move around. It says it's superior at keeping the guitar in tune. I'm not really feeling that. I'm a little confused why they have rubber versus sliding as the labels and the differentiators, but then over here they're calling them high tension and standard tension rubber. I think they should just be consistent so that it's less confusing. But reading the seriousgas.com review, it's not really talking about high tension, low tension, hard or soft rubber. It's saying one of them has an extra 2 millimeters. So I guess you can make up your mind. I sort of feel like just visually, you can see that some of them are thicker than the others. I clamped these on, and it definitely pushes the tuning sharp. I compared it to the G7. I do feel like the G7 is making things a little sharp, but consistently so. So it still sounds very much in tune. But I don't feel like this is doing anything different or unique or better in terms of keeping the tuning in a way that I wouldn't need to retune to be in tune with other instruments that I might be playing with. So I've failed to be massively impressed. I think the biggest downside for me is just the idea of having to take out the piece and then you've got all this rubber all over the place and you're trying to like look at which is which. They are kind of color coded. You've got this orangey red versus the gray, so you can kind of know which is the difference, but you really kind of have to look hard to read the number on that. I found myself looking to see whether it was 15 or 16, really not too sure, without looking a lot more closely, figuring out which of these is the one that you want and checking the number and inserting it and taking it back out. It seems a little involved. The marketing material, the backstory, talks about 8-year-old Thalia Bradley looking at a poster of Taylor Swift playing a beautiful inlaid Hawaiian koa Taylor guitar. She was also playing with a capo, and she thought, well, she really deserves a capo as beautiful as the guitar, and she took the idea to her father, who's an inventor, and that's kind of where it came from. I think that as the gimmick or the selling point, because it is so beautiful and unique and special looking, that's in and of itself kind of cool. But coming up with an entirely different method of adjusting to the different fretboard radiuses and arches and everything else, that's kind of combining two ideas in one, and I'm not so impressed with the second idea, just because it is a bit more involved and a little more time intensive and there's more pieces to carry around. And on immediate review, on trying it on my guitar, I didn't really feel like it was that much better retaining tuning than any other capo I'd worked with. Those are my initial impressions. I'd love to hear what other people have thought about these capos. Definitely beautiful, glad I bought it, but does it change my world in terms of tuning? Not really. I think the G7 is going to be my go-to capo for that. This wins for beauty. This wins for practicality and reliability. If you like what you see on the channel, please do click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you're notified when I post new content, and I'll see you all again in the next video.